In 2008, a 17-year-old boy changed his life forever. Frequently playing online video games, he suffered from several mental illnesses as he played up to 16 hours a day for 4 years. In a massive online role-playing game called Final Fantasy XI Online, the ability to become submerged in a whole new reality was easy. Many of the objectives of this game could not be fulfilled without it spending at least 3 hours. Because of this, he would only pause for food and restroom breaks. A clear psychological addiction was evident, as he couldn't stand the thought of being away from the game, and left the game on every night to sleep with and not feel alone. He showed signs of dissociative identity disorder, as he changed personalities to match his online friends. He experienced many instances of clinical depression from relationships that came and went. He had bouts of extreme fear, accompanied by hopelessness and despair, which are symptoms of anxiety. Clearly, heavy use of digital technology has a negative effect on the psychological well-being of our minds, but it was not until recent studies and medical advances that we actually saw the effect. The above example is just one of many that point to the link between psychological disorders and heavy use of digital technology. Still, some argue that our digital media proves to be a benefit, but often lose sight of what really happens during heavy internet use. For example, some claim that the internet helps encourage our nature to explore through distraction. It will be shown, however, that the heavy use of digital technology has numerous psychological effects that complicates our lives and ruins our sense of security. It leads to disorders such as depression, anxiety, and social despondency that can cause our psychosocial temperament to take a tumultuous spin into seclusion. Our mind's cognition scale declines as we overload it with information that we will ultimately discard. The brain's memory capacity diminishes without practice. If we have every piece of information at our fingertips, why bother trying to remember it? The unseen menace of digital technology has hidden itself well over the years, but just like a good sleuth, we are finding evidence that reveals its terror. The evidence is vast, but it breaks down into 3 major areas. First, heavy internet use leads to depression. 20 years ago, that statement would have been ridiculed and scoffed at. However, the more we learn about depression and its causes, the more we see how true that statement is. Studies and research show the correlation between internet and depression. A European school intervention study called SELE, Saving and Empowering Young Lives in Europe, had 7,000 students complete a self-report as a baseline assessment of their internet behaviors. Pathological internet users who met the criteria for internet addiction showed significantly higher rates of depression. The fact that heavy internet use leads to depression is not a new topic. In 1999, Current Health Journal's article, Feeling Sad in Cyberspace, conducted a 2-year study of internet users. The study consisted of psychological tests with questions about how the participants felt about life, their level of happiness, and social interactions. People who used the internet heavily were more likely to feel depressed and lonely because without face-to-face contact, there is no sense of security and happiness. All these facts are disheartening. It only scratches the surface of the effects heavy internet use has on our brain's chemical makeup and functionality. Depression exhibits itself clearly at times in the actions of an individual, so the correlation is apparent. But more subtle mental effects are being revealed. These subtleties bring us to the second reason heavy technology use is problematic. The use of digital technology adversely affects our brain's capacity for memory. While engaging in activities like web browsing, emailing, chatting, etc., we are unknowingly rewriting our brain's chemistry and changing its functionality. Gray matter, a major component in regions of the brain that involves muscle control, sensory perception, hearing, seeing, memory, speech, and emotions, changes in density the more an individual engages in interactive technology, such as computers or cell phones. In the European Journal of Radiology, a study was conducted on adolescents to measure the change in gray matter density of their brains. Using a voxel-based morphometry, a brain scan, 18 internet-addicted adolescents and 15 healthy adolescents were tested. As a result, the IA adolescents exhibited a lower GMD in several areas of the brain. Of particular interest is a lower GMD in the anterior cingulate cortex, a portion of the brain that is activated during states of pain, desire, addiction, and cognition. By definition, cognition is the mental process of acquiring knowledge through thought. The more gray matter an individual has around the ACC, the stronger the cognition. Thus, a lack of gray matter will impede the amount of knowledge the brain can take in, and by extension, the brain's ability to retain the information. At this point, elaborating on another danger is unnecessary, but this danger is just as important as our psychological and cognitive ability. A third reason why we should reduce reliance on digital technology is that overuse leads to problems with social relationships. Friends, family, co-workers, and acquaintances are all in jeopardy when it comes to heavy use of the multimedia outlet. In fact, the American psychologists addressed this issue in 1998. Their research showed that over a period of 2 years, 169 people in 73 households experienced a decline in communication with family members in the households, a decline in the size of their social circle, and an increase in their depression and loneliness. While spending hours in one room, sitting on the internet, instead of spending time with friends or family, our conversation skills and sense of security around other people diminishes. Being proficient in social interactions is similar to practicing a musical instrument in that without practicing daily, newly found skills diminish. The longer a person deprives himself of social contact, the more difficult it becomes to engage when prompted. Research done by Computers in Education says problematic internet use leads to loneliness in young adults. They conducted a study on 493 university students using the online cognition scale, dating anxiety scale, loneliness scale, and personal information questionnaire to collect the data. After analysis, the numbers show that loneliness, communication anxiety, unpopular anxiety, and psychological disorders were not only prevalent, but would increase with time. Using the internet, playing video games, or chatting in excess takes time away from our primary need for face-to-face social interaction. The lack of interaction inevitably leads to insecurities or obscurities. The psychological, cognitive, and social dangers have been found and are becoming more well known each day. Still, there are some that argue on the side of technology. Despite the detriments experienced by heavy use of technology, Sam Anderson argues that it is our nature to be curious, and allowing our attention to wander is beneficial. This, in effect, means heavy internet use is a way for us to satiate our mind's hunger for curiosity. He claims focus is a paradox. It is a distraction built into it. We need both. Andrew uses Marcel Proust, the writer of Remembrance of Things Past, as an example. In his books Pallades, the Cookie, Marcel eats a spoonful of tea-soaked Madeleine and has his attention diverted to a tangent about his childhood. While this worked exceptionally well for the book, it would be erroneous to believe it has the same application to our argument. For one thing, Marcel is recalling the memories of his past. He is not staring at a web page with ads, diverting his attention to unimportant information that will eventually overwhelm his mind and bring about cognitive instability. Anderson next points out a focus-enhancing exercise by William James to point out the difficulty of focusing on a single dot for long periods of time. The human mind can't actually focus on the dot. It's too hungry for variety, surprise, and adventure of the unknown. While repeating the earlier point may seem redundant, it bears repeating that focusing on one object in an effort to enhance performance has nothing to do with having our attention diverted for us by useless information we will ultimately discard. Anderson points out the plethora of information and abilities we have through technology and uses the great geniuses poets, and songwriters of old as a testament to the art of distraction. He points to Einstein and Lennon's potential to adapt were they to live in this century. He advocates the Beatles' ability to write better songs and create unrivaled viral videos, and Einstein's aptitude in the art of physics. If our late greats were here today, it's very possible that their abilities would be astonishing. It is completely reasonable to expect songs sung decades ago to hold a higher rank today. Still, all those historical figures had the same thing in common. They focused on one subject. Einstein focused on physics, and Lennon on writing music. They were not sitting idly in a chair for many hours at a time, trying to find the number of protons in a nucleus, or how many words will rhyme with love. The internet or some other medium would just distract their progress and potential.